Quinlan's here to help us to react to that and indeed to the rugby at the weekend. This is a crisis for Munster, I would say now. That last off-season they made some big signings that were going to change the style of play, that were going to address the issues that they had, and the players that they signed have come in and done relatively well, but they're getting hammered in semi-finals in a way that they weren't last year, and that's not progression.
No, it's very concerning, to be honest. I think, and it's not just on Saturday, it's the last few weeks. I think when you get to the business end of the season, you want to kind of die with your boots on, attacking wise and throwing everything at it. You can't really question their effort levels and stuff like that, that's what I gave out about a few years ago. I thought that, that desire and that kind of drive and passion with the red jersey was missing a little bit. To be fair to them, they're trying their hardest, and they just look like they're lacking a bit of direction. Maybe it's a confidence thing, maybe it's a nervousness, maybe it's not being able to cope with the pressure from the opposition. They're still a big scalp when you play against them. Edinburgh a few weeks ago, Munster's pedigree in Europe in the quarter-finals. I was talking to Richard Cockrell afterwards, and it was I was talking to him before, and it was optimism and a real sense of opportunity, and afterwards it was a real sense of frustration. It was a game they should have won, and it would have been a massive scalp for them. And Munster are just not creating chances. They're working their socks off. They're battering teams over and back, over and back, over and back. And they some of the telling stats from Saturday, Ger, was they only had 5 lineouts. They lost one of them, the others were a bit sloppy. So you have no kind of launch pad. And that was very good intelligence from Leinster not to kick the ball out. Leinster had 15 lineouts. They won 13, lost 2. So they had 13 opportunities to really kind of... And Munster put pressure on them. Peter O'Mahony won one, they were getting in the way, but...
And the
it was the earlier ones. It was from probably the last 2/3 of the game. Their attacking platform off those lineouts, whether it was maul or off the top,
can we go back to
sharper.
Can we go back to one of the issues that Bernard Jackman raised there? He said that people aren't really giving out about, or that Munster's forwards aren't the problem. And I kind of feel like we're still analysing rugby in there's this game over here is played by the forwards, and this game over here played by the backs, and one person looks after that, one person looks after this, and you're like, well, that's not really how things work anymore.
Like, I don't agree with that. I think I was
the Leinster maul was killing. The Leinster maul was killing.
Well, once they got it going, to be fair to the Munster scrum, was started off very well. Their scrum and their set piece has been pretty good this year.
Penalty wins off that, really important.
Their defence has been good, so there is kind of positives. But the one area where you can affect games and where it counts is the scoreboard. You've got to score. You cannot win matches relying on penalties or squeezing the life out of the opposition all the time. You've got to create stuff. You've got to look really dangerous. Keith Earls, we've spoken about his form the last couple of years. Phenomenal. Get him the ball. He doesn't get the ball in any space. He has to go looking a little bit. He was the one who created that win in Edinburgh. Joey Carberry's a fantastic attacking player. Inside him, you've probably one of probably the best scrum half in the world. I know his form dipped a little bit in the Six Nations. Rory Scannell's a good footballer.
Chris Farrell's really well.
I think it's been coached out of Rory Scannell a little bit, that he's just head down stuff. He's actually a really good footballer. He's a good passer. Farrell is a good distributor as well. I know first and second phase you're going to try and crash it up a little bit.
This is Van Graan's job.
Well, look, I'm not
cutting Jerry Flannery and Felix Jones is all well and good as a corporate move, right? But actually, the head coach, it's his job. If this was Leo Cullen's Leinster, Leo Cullen was carrying the bag when they won the CAN, when they won no games in Europe that season. It was his job to fix it, and he went out and they came up with a brilliant solution. But it's Van Graan's team, and it's Van Graan's responsibility that team got whacked at the weekend.
For sure, and that's what happens with the head coach. It's probably a year and a half now that he's been in the job. It's taken a little bit of time it takes time for any coach to settle in and get up to the speed of the environment, the expectation, the pressure, get to know your players and stuff like that. But
what's he trying to do?
They're quite direct, and we get that from a lot of South African type play, that it's very direct, forward orientated. Now Munster didn't kick the ball a lot on Saturday, so they only kicked the ball out of hand 11 times, so it's not as if they're kicking the leather off the ball. They're just being a bit direct in the way they play, and look, they tried, and they tried to move the ball on occasions, but it's just how do they unlock a defence that just... Leinster's defence was just loads of numbers in the line. They didn't overcommit at the breakdown. They didn't even go for... You know, they got a couple of turnovers. Josh van der Fleer was very good there. But they didn't kind of overcommit at the breakdown. They just kept plenty of numbers in the line. Munster would go over, back, and then it would be either knock on, ball dislodged in a tackle, mistake, turnover, and you know, that was it. It was 4, 5, 6, 7 phases max. You cannot exhaust and hope to break down a team like Leinster. After that little number of phases, you've got to be really, really patient. And it's just that bit of incisiveness and fairness that they're missing. And I actually think, and people in back, you know, experienced backs think that they're good players, but for some reason they're not attacking in a way that's unlocking defences the way they should be.
They don't seem to be attacking as a 15 anyway.
No, and I would say to you about the forwards, where Birch is saying that you know, it's the forwards are going well. They are playing well. They're doing the basics very well. But you want attack-minded forwards in phase play as well.
What's the ambition level? Yeah.
You look at the Leinster try from Sean Cronin. It's the front row. It's Healy, bit of a swerve, evasiveness, pass, furlong, pass, Cronin off his right foot, try. You know, you just... Dave Kilcoyne, Niall Scannell and John Ryan are capable of that, but you just wonder, would they be nervous to try and do it, or would they actually make the correct decision under pressure to do that? So it's attack isn't just a backline. It's not just off a scrum where you just what backline move we're going to call. Attack is a broad range of, you know, you have your 1-3-3 one scenario, then you have that's with your forwards. Where do you space them in phase? 2-4-2 is the other thing, where you keep kind of 2 forwards on either side, 4 guys in the middle, and you kind of move it over and back. And Munster tried that under Rob Penny a number of years ago, where they're trying to that type of an approach, and maybe it's something they should have continued doing.
Well, that's you know,
maybe it's something they should have continued doing.
Things would have changed if they doubled down on Rob Penny.
Well, the game has changed so much now. So Munster in the last couple of years beat a lot of teams and just suffocated them with intensity, with aggression, with pace into the breakdown, with a directness. When that doesn't happen, what else? What's next? So when you're coached to try and just be so direct, and in fairness to them, they're very good at it. 2015, I think they got to the Pro 14, Pro 12 final at the time. They lost against Glasgow in Belfast. They blew Ulster away in that semi-final with just a real intensity and aggression, and I just remember some games stand out over the years. One's in Thomond Park, where the French teams Toulouse came there, Toulon, and you just felt that there was a real intensity. Even the game at Christmas against Leinster, you know, I know James Lowe was sent off and there was a niggle in it, but there was an intensity. So if Munster don't have that intensity and that emotional high... I
thought they had a bit of it in the first half.
They did,
and I thought that actually... But I think, here's the thing, I think your point is exactly right. I think even if you do have that intensity and the opposition expects it and matches it and has quality, then you can't win.
Yeah.
Because, like...
In saying all that, Ger, look, you know, the reason we're talking about this is because we probably feel they're better than what they're showing, right?
Absolutely.
I think so.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing, aside from me being a Munster man, it's a good story. Munster being strong is good for Irish rugby because of the brand and because of that Leinster rivalry, and, you know, so... Like, obviously, Leinster people are delighted, but Leinster probably were in third gear the other day. That game was over probably 55, 60 minutes, you know. You just felt, how are Munster going to get back? Do they have the ability to chase the game? They don't seem to have that. So I think they're better than what they've shown us, particularly in the last few weeks.
The talent pool is better.
And it's on the back
what's
of,
being delivered.
Like, if they'd beaten Edinburgh with a brilliant performance over in Edinburgh in the quarterfinals. Now, Edinburgh are a very good side this year. In Europe, but they had their moments in the Pro 14, but they didn't make the knockout stages. So Munster should be going to Edinburgh and expecting to get a real clinical performance and get the job done. Not that it's going to be an easy one. The Benetton one then, that's the one that just invited all this negativity, because you're thinking, wow, what's happening here? And that's no disrespect to Benetton, they have improved, but like, to be fair, Munster at home against Benetton in the quarter-final, a huge prize at stake. They were very, very lucky to get out of that.
Alan, you talk about a front row that's nervous to play the way that Leinster's front row play. You talk about Rory Scannell having a lot of good elements of his play coached out of him. That's a very grim thing to hear about any coaching.
Look, at the end of the day, it's not as if any coaches, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening. I'm just thinking, I just know from my own playing time that if your mindset is not just run with the head down and go through the process, to actually think a little bit differently, that you're going to have a bit of evasiveness, you might offload, you might give a pass, a wider pass. It's just, if you just sense sometimes with some of the Munster attack that you know what's going to happen, and that they need, and sometimes you have to just carry it up, put the basics on, play direct, be aggressive, but just sometimes you feel that maybe it's something they need to develop now. And look, to be fair to Johan van Graan, he's not been there a long time, and they now know a little bit more of where they've got to go, probably, and they'll have an opportunity to do that in the summer, and their structure and their plan. The coaches are really important.
Yeah, my concern about what happens now is, what are we at, the 20th of May, and their season's over. So I don't know how much of the pre-season the Munster players will have, the World Cup players will have with Munster.
Very little.
So,
if any,
when do you install the new game plan?
I think.
Will there be any? I'm not sure if they.
I think you have to put a template, and you have to. But you'd love to have, you know, an idea. It's going to be more difficult now with the World Cup.
3 or 4 weeks.
You'd love to have now the players go on holidays and get them back in July. Everybody maybe in July, and start working and implementing a different sort of approach. It's just having a little bit of more stuff in the locker, I think, and. You know, you can go out and sign top quality players that make an automatic difference, but they don't have the luxury of being able to do that.
Are Munster close to becoming the third province in the country, or the first province in the country at the moment?
Well, Ulster have improved. They were dreadful on Friday night, so they're probably going to be better next year. Connacht are back in Europe. I think Connacht are worth a mention because of the philosophy and the way and the approach that Andy Friend has taken, given the negativity the year before under Kieran Keane. They're back playing exciting rugby, they're back playing with a real kind of confidence and an openness to their game, I think. So I'm convinced that, you know, coaching can make a huge difference here.
Yeah.
And actually to get a structure in place and really just try and broaden the horizons in the attack more. And it's not just the backs, it's across the board. So are they, I don't know the answers to that question. I think Leinster had the luxury of leaving Sexton on the bench. There's no Sean O'Brien, there's no Rob Kearney. They were bruised and battered after last week. And you just sense that, like, the second half of that game was gone once Sean Cronin scores. It's just going to be very difficult for them to get back in, and Leinster could just absorb that bit of pressure then. So I don't know. I think they have the players to be closer, to be a lot closer. And look, what are the positives?
The problem is coaching then.
Well,
it's not the players, the playing staff. So if
it's somewhere in between. I think the players need to take responsibility here as well, Ger. I look, honestly, you play, and it's different personnel and it's different times, but when I played in the back row at Munster, you know, with Axel, with Dennis Leamy, with David Wallace, with Jim Williams, you know, like, I was probably someone who didn't adhere to game plans and structures. And that was one of my problems, why sometimes I annoyed coaches and frustrated them with Eddie O'Sullivan with Ireland, because I just kind of wanted to run around, I wanted to pass the ball, and sometimes that was the wrong thing to do, because I remember I gave an intercept pass against Montalban on a Friday night in Thomond Park in 2009, where we nearly lost the game. We got a late penalty from Rog to win it. 7 points given to Montalban was my fault. On our own 10-yard line, I threw a pass that was about 25, 30 yards, which was crazy to do, because that's the way sometimes I thought. I gave a crossfield kick to Brian Kearney in his debut in Ulster in 2006. It worked out perfect. He scores a try, we win the game. Those things can backfire on you, so I'm not talking about throwing the ball around, but I'm just talking about the mentality. And it's not as if they're coached, the skills are coached out of them, but when you continuously have an approach where it's direct, it's hard to kind of go back to anything different than we naturally do as kids as a rugby player running around the field. So I think they need to bring in, get someone in and change the philosophy a little bit.
That new hire is unbelievably important.
Maybe help Eoin van Graan as well, that he needs something different. And it's just negative at the moment. There's financial issues there with the stadium debt.
I don't think the stadium debt's an issue. I actually don't. They have a mortgage on the stadium that they're paying off.
Yeah, they are. But I just think numbers are down this year in the stadium. They're not going to make a profit.
And Dougie's leaving.
The coaches are leaving. So look, it's all come at once. The positives are, I genuinely believe the players are good. They're better than what we've seen in weeks, and they've hit the highs. They've had some really good performances this year.
Who do you want as a coach, as the philosophical brain behind their attack?
Well, you think Stephen Larkham's name was mentioned. He would excite. He would excite the fans. He would excite people. And you think sometimes an attack coach, his best work is done with a one-on-one with someone, literally walking through saying, look, when you're running up to a player, I want you to step, put the footwork on, be available for offloads, just to get that mindset and that kind of approach back into guys individually. It's not about, attack isn't about just passing the ball, shifting it on for the sake of it. It's about having a little structure, having some set moves, maybe 4 or 5 set moves in a game.
Patterns of play that you do over a
season. If somebody makes a line break, that things open up. It's play rugby a little bit. And sometimes you sense that Leinster had 28 defenders beaten on Saturday. Leinster had 16, and Munster had 16. So there's 12 more defenders beaten. That's telling you that there's evasiveness, there's line breaks, there's...
And you're expecting it to happen with Leinster. When it happens, the rest of the team understands this is a go.
So if Munster score in the first half the other day, Ger, and they get momentum and they get 7, 8, 10 points up, they're an incredibly hard team to claw back then, because their tenacity and their work rate and their honesty is there. So it's not as bad as maybe the bigger picture that's been painted in the press seems. I think a lot of this stuff, and it's a good challenge for Eoin van Graan now. He's a young coach. Get the right people in, put a structure, a plan in place. A couple of more young players coming through from the under-20s. So there's attack-minded players there and coming through, good young guys who are involved in the 20s. So it's just another frustrating kind of end, which is the problem after probably 3 years in the trot.
It's really December, the last week in November, December, before we get to see what the upswing in fortunes will be, or what the changes they make are going to do anything to it. So it's a long summer ahead for Munster. Alan, good stuff. Thanks for joining us this morning. It is 9:13 this morning. Let's go